It's a popular Washington, D.C. attraction, even with its hefty ticket prices. But now the 9-year-old Newseum on Pennsylvania Avenue may be shuttering its doors, no longer able to keep up with operating expenses. When the Newseum opened in 2008, it billed itself as an homage to the First Amendment, featuring exhibits acknowledging the biggest news events in the world.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
The 5-story museum includes a tribute to journalists who died on the job and a 3-dimensional map, updated yearly, showing which countries tolerate a free press.
This is a very powerful metaphor. It really indicates to people how fortunate we are to be living in a country with a free press society.
But last month, the Newseum CEO stepped down, saying the money just wasn't there to keep the operation afloat.
It can no longer afford to support it.
I'm a little bit surprised because it's so highly recommended. So, yeah, I feel kind of sad.
Not everyone, though, was sad about it. Jack Schaefer of Politico says the Newseum can't close fast enough, calling it a gilded monument to journalistic vanity. Still, there's this perspective.
What I find unique about this museum is it is very current, very necessary, and very moving.
And it might literally be moving away. Well, first of all, it thrives in one sense. It does like a huge business, like $56 million a year or something, but the tickets are $25 a piece. The place is huge. It's not that accessible. It's on Pennsylvania Avenue. It's not really that easy to get to. That's one of the problems with it. I mean, I've actually never been there. I've done the virtual tour. They have my father's office, which they've never put on display, which kind of bugs me. But I think it serves a purpose. And, you know, I think part of the purpose is the historical, it's politics in the press largely, and how things get covered over the generations. And they have they have that front page section that they do. There's a lot of things in there. It's a fully engaging experience.
Yeah, I can't agree with my old friend Jack Schaefer that it would be good if it shut down. I think that would be a terrible thing. But I went for the first time in 2016, and I have to say, I was really kind of taken aback at how dull it was. I thought it was pretty boring. I went through just about the whole thing, and I said, museums make it with repeat business, and I can't see that I would ever want to go back. I hope they find a way to keep it going, but I also hope they find a way to make it more interesting, quite frankly.
Well, I think it's dull for you because you've been part of the news business, and it's probably more interesting for people from the outside, and they get a chance to get a peek behind the scenes. I've been there many different times for events. I've taken my kids there in the summertime, and they've enjoyed it. They have an anchor set where you can go and pretend that you're anchoring the news. I think it's important because this industry is moving so rapidly that 5 years ago is pretty ancient. And you talk to kids 5 years from now, and they'll say, "You what? You were shooting video on an iPhone? We shoot videos now on our fingers, or whatever it may be." And it's a wonderful way to just walk through the building and take your kids through this tour of, back in the day. This is how we used to use film, and then it was 3/4-inch tape, and we covered this story. So I think it's important. One of the things I do think that they should have done more of is that they should have had it more as a shared space where you can bring in, maybe have different programs for colleges so that it can be occupied and you can bring in more income. Because I think there was concern about revenue from the very beginning, and it's turned out to be true.
I do think there's a lack of media literacy in this country, and it's useful to have a place or some kind of forum to express that. I think Jack Schaefer's point was partly that the grandness of the experience felt a little off. And, every profession and industry probably has a museum to itself somewhere. But there's something that feels a little bit weird about being so self-congratulatory about an industry that's supposed to be public service. I mean, the point of Watergate was not to say, we did Watergate. It was to uncover Watergate.
I have not been there. When I went to D.C. with my family a couple years ago, it didn't even occur to me to go. It just wasn't on my radar as an interesting thing to do. I am a little confused as I've learned more about it. I don't understand, I guess, fully if it is a museum about the news or a museum about big events that the news industry covered. I mean, Reagan's speech about Gorbachev tearing down the wall, incredible moment. I still kind of get chills when I remember that time. But I'm not sure that belongs in a museum about the news business. It's also my understanding that they made a decision to build in a very lavish way on a very expensive piece of land. And if they'd been maybe a little more modest in their aspirations, maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation.
We are the most self-congratulatory business in the world.
True.
There's no question about that, and I think that's part of what some of the pushback is.
Present company accepted.
Yeah, I thought
The
Hollywood
business.
was.
I didn't say us. The business.